Hi, and welcome back to Rise Up Stories. Today, I've got a slightly different angle to my guest. So instead of us talking about his pivoting moment, his rise up story, he's here to help us understand why we're even living and what's the purpose of life. So I would like to introduce to you Daniel Browne, who's somebody that I met back in 2012 when I was doing business development program. And Daniel was one of the people there. We connected and we've stayed loosely connected through all these years. So Daniel is a former investment banker. Okay, so that's not who he is today, which is what makes him so interesting. So right now he's turned into, and this is what he's been doing for quite a long time, as an intuitive business coach. And how does that sound and work? Well, he helps people understand their purpose and their superpowers. And the way that he does it is absolutely fascinating, which is why I wanted to have this conversation, because there's just so much to unpack in what he does. And I know that there'll be so much value for you, my listeners, to hear what Daniel has to say about us, our purpose in life, and where the superpowers that we have, because we are all amazing energy souls, if you like, but we play small, and Daniel will help us understand why we do and what we should do. So Daniel, welcome, and I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, Vicky. Great to be here. How are you doing?
I'm very well, and I'm really excited about this talk that we're going to have. We've had a recent talk where I had a chat with Daniel to sort of, connect with him and invite him to do this podcast. And I tell you what, I could have spoken to you, Daniel, that day for hours, but obviously that wasn't practical, and you had clients, I had clients. But I'm so glad that we're doing this today, because I know that a lot of people, I see it so much in my work, a lot of people kind of live life under the guise of, I have to do this because I've got to support my family, I've got my business, I've got to eat, I've got to live. So it's more of an obligation kind of energetic statement rather than this is my purpose, this is my passion. And then we have people that have living their purpose, or they think they are, or maybe they are, but they're not quite succeeding and they don't know why. So there's a lot to unpack. Where do you want to start with all of this? Tell us a little bit about what does it mean to be an intuitive business coach?
So, as an intuitive business coach, I use my intuition. I also train my clients to use their intuition because that's really the source of so much. So a lot of what we're taught is external, which is very useful and very valid because it helps us accomplish in life. But truly successful people always talk about intuition. So Richard
Mm.
Branson, the founder of Spanx, everyone who's very successful talks about using their intuition to be successful, because these are the hints, the nudges, the clues that basically lead you to success and help you follow your own path in life. So intuition is actually, there's two types really. There's one which is more about you and your life, and then intuition where you're able to read for other people, kind of tune into what's going on with populations. Actually, intuition can be very complicated, but because there's different strands, and
So
sometimes we think,
is it sometimes people call it the empath part, where you can feel other people? Is that what it means?
yeah, so that's one part of when you can feel other people, you can sense what other people are going through, you can read information about other people or for other people. And then we have our own intuition where we just know the right things to do at the right times. But actually, if you really dive deep into it, there's different strands of intuition. So things which like hunches, things that which seem kind of e just normal to us actually are quite intuitive abilities, like the ability to like download music, like musicians who can
Yeah.
just say, "Oh, I get these songs; they just come to me." Or even Einstein, the theory of relativity, one could say that's part of intuition as well. So it's really opening up all of those capabilities where we receive extra information than from the invisible or from the invisible realm, so to speak. So that's what I help people access.
So I'm already feeling that this is going to be a very loaded program, and I'm excited. So as I'm listening to you, I've got like a million questions. I guess my biggest one is, You must have known, because we all have it, right? And I think what you were saying is that we are taught, and it's normal, how to reference everything on the outside, but actually what people like Richard Branson and so on, they start to talk and show us how to point inside, and because we've got all the knowledge. And
Yeah.
I think it's part of the world system to keep you disconnected with your intuition, even though it's always there. So my biggest question is, you were a financial investment banker, but you must have had this sense of yourself. And, the way I know you, you don't come across as an investment banker to me, energetically, that is. You come to me as a very, very in touch with, intuitive with yourself type of person, but that's how I know you now. When did this all start for you? How did you go from being this investment banker to the intuitive business coach? Where did this begin for you?
Well, I think it started at age 16, so it was always there and it took a while to kind of blossom. But age 16, I read the book The Way of the Peaceful Warrior
Oh,
by
yeah.
Dan Millman, which is an amazing book, and it's now a film as well. And I just had this experience of just connection to everything. I didn't know how to explain it. It was like it was fleeting, but I just knew at that point there was something more to life. And then so I did lots of personal development. I did landmark. I did lots of different things. I was a seeker, and that was that. I did that kind of in my spare time. I also did coaching in my spare time as well. So it's interesting because I enjoyed actually doing being in investment banking. Was what I liked most about it was business and meeting these CEOs and entrepreneurs of companies. I think that was the exciting part. It was quite mathematical, which satisfied. So I had those two
Daniel,
aspects.
stop. You completely froze. So you were busy saying, so just say that and then I will edit, that
Okay.
you were working with business owners and it was quite mathematical. And then as soon as you said mathematical, you just froze.
All
So
right.
if you
Okay.
can, so if you can,
Okay. I'll get back to that. Yeah. So investment banking can be quite mathematical, very detached. So you're stuck in spreadsheets, and I enjoyed it from a one perspective, but then I felt very detached from actual businesses. Like I was just like analyzing a business just from a numbers perspective. So I always felt there was something more. I felt that I could bring some coaching, some humanness into banking. So I actually moved out and started contracting and freelancing at lots of different businesses because wanted to get something a bit more concrete in terms of how businesses worked. So I think actually, if I look through the whole life, all of that was very useful. All of that path was very useful because now as an intuitive, I can use that background in business and those frameworks that I learned to actually help
yeah.
people. Um,
It's a bit like what Stephen Jobs was saying, that as going through life and having the experiences, you may not understand what the purpose of it all is, but when you look back on the dots, you see how they connect.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So definitely get that. And it's good actually it's good to have a well-rounded practical you got to merge the practical and intuitive. That's what
I
makes it most
agree.
useful.
And this is very interesting what you're saying, because I think a lot of people are focusing, I always talk about the body, mind, and spirit, the three sort of dimensional energetic levels that we function in, all of them. And people tend to, in my experience, focus on one, like they'll focus on the physical, or they'll focus on the mental, or they'll focus on the spiritual, but not many people integrate it all. And it can't work separately. So it's interesting that you've said that, because that's how I work as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's on the practical because that's a lot of people do that, but when you start to bring everything in, it accelerates. You get way more from
Yes.
bringing everything in, essentially. Especially now when we have so much uncertainty, you have to work on all of those dimensions.
So how did you get into, so you stepped away, you started your own sort of intuitive business, coaching business. And I know we haven't talked about this yet, but I know that you work with archetypes, which is a lot of what Caroline Mize does. And if I'm not mistaken, you got trained with her, by her?
Yes, I did. So actually interesting. So I say I'm an intuitive business coach. I wasn't always intuitive. Like back in my banking days, it wasn't like I was not. I wanted to be. I was definitely not intuitive. And I used to see others and think, oh, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could have be able to tune in. So it's something I developed over time, which is actually what makes great stories. So I was doing Dr. Joe Dispenza, I did his meditations for over 10 years. So gradually I felt I was getting more in tune with the universe, so to speak. But then in 2018, that's when I had a real awakening. I had these I had these Caroline Mays cards, as you said. And I was just with some friends, and we just started experimenting with them, card face down. I just put my hand on the card, and we were just reading information, and it was like very like I had these voices. It was almost like some voices very powerful, like channeling it's how I imagine the gods would speak, like the Norse gods. Like one felt like Thor was speaking through me. One felt like Venus was speaking through me. I just had this very powerful experience. I was like, oh my God, what is this? So it was like this opening of this gift. So that's 2018. That's when I knew that I was intuitive. That's when it came. Before that, it was very fleeting. It wasn't. I didn't really trust my intuition. So it was really an awakening at that point in time. So then from there, I dived into archetypes and just started doing archetypal readings for everyone. Then I trained with Caroline Mason, got the certification. But it was like my gift got unlocked then. So that's what changed the game. That's when I decided to be an intuitive business coach. Yes. So it was a very
So,
interesting
so
story.
for our listeners, some of them will be going, "Oh my God, I know exactly what the archetypes are all about," and other people are going, "What?" So just give us a bit of background when we are referring and talking about archetypes. What's that all about? Explain it to a 10-year-old.
Yeah, so archetypes are basically characters, fundamental characters that exist in story and myth, and you see them in TV. So examples like the king, the warrior, the healer, the lover, the magician, the sage, the seeker. There's many archetypes, but we actually intuitively know what archetypes are. So if I just say, oh, that person's such a drama queen, which is slightly varying on the stereotypical, but we understand what that means,
It's true.
or that guy is a knight in shining armor. We know we know what that means. It's a whole shorthand for a particular type of character. So that's what an archetype is. It's a archetypal character that exists through myth, through story. We see it through other human beings. We judge people, or we see those archetypes in other people.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Very true.
Yeah,
So, so is the idea of the work that you do that we discover, because you say there's lots of archetypes, so do we have all of those? Or,
we have so with the Caroline May system, we have 12 archetypes, eight of which are unique to us, and then four which are everyone has in common, and the archetypes of survival. And they basically give you your character. They flesh you out. So for example, I'll give you some one I have. I have the wizard archetype as one of my strong ones, and the sage, but I also have the star archetype. So part of that is I love like anything to do with like performing arts, acting, dancing, singing. Like it brings out something in me. Like just watching, I know La La Land, like gives fills me with so much joy.
so do you
And
have
I've
a pair
done.
of tap shoes hidden away in your cupboard?
I
The way
don't.
you want to express you out there and
I don't. But what's interesting is for a long time I didn't even invest any time in that because I was like, oh, that doesn't make money. Like, what's the point of that? So
yeah.
when it comes to purpose, there was a point where I was like, actually, I really enjoy that. I love it. It gives me a sense of fulfillment and aliveness. And when I started just doing courses part time, like it brought me so much joy, and it got me in touch with a part of myself that I had been ignoring for a
So,
while.
so that this really resonates with me. Most of the listeners, and you definitely don't know, that the first thing that I did when I left school was train as a fashion designer. So
Oh
I'm a
wow.
fashion designer by trade. I got my certification. I actually studied with one of South Africa's haute coutures, like
Oh wow.
Archie Leggett. And I did it for, this was my job. I used to work in factories. I did bespoke work, a lot of bespoke work. I used to do a bit for boutiques. I used to run sort of bread and butter lines of tracksuits, bespoke tracksuits, designer tracksuits. That was my bread and butter. And then life happened and all sorts of things happened. And that was another story of how I came into the personal development world, which was also something I've always done. But for the longest time, I never allowed myself to talk about it or express it for the same reasons as you. Like, I don't have time. It doesn't make money, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
actually, I am a huge, I embroider, I knit, I crochet, I sew. And I love it.
Wow.
And I
Oh, that's
absolutely
amazing.
love it. So I've been dabbling a lot with it now, and I'm thinking of actually, making some creations, all of that kind of stuff. But what I want to sort of touch on is that since I've been doing, and I paint. So I'm
Oh,
not a
wow.
painter and I'm not an artist and I haven't tried. And I play music. And again, I'm not a musician and all that. Recently, I'm painting by numbers, but it's great fun. And I'm teaching myself, well, I'm taking lessons on piano and I've gone back into my sewing and pattern making and knitting and crocheting. And it is such joy in myself. So when you say what you say, I kind of like, oh my God, me too, kind of thing.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So yes, so that's part of you. That's one of your archetypes. That's the reason why it's useful to know what they are, because often we have these archetypes which they're actually an important part of ourselves, but because either we think they don't make money, we don't have time, as you just said, like we neglect them. But those are parts of ourselves that actually really that make us feel alive,
So,
which is actually
Daniel,
so that's the beauty of.
so what happens when there's
Sorry,
so
you're gonna.
so the two questions that are coming to me. The one is what happens if you don't know your archetype? Secondly, what happens if you know or don't know, but you neglect or ignore one of your archetypes? What happens to your life? What's the big deal of that?
So what I would say is that let's say when you do have your archetypes, everything is in front of you. You know exactly what's going to give you motivation, what's going to make you fulfill, what's going to make you fun, what you really need to thrive. You have that information already in front of you. If you don't have that, then you're going through life in the slow lane. So you might at some point you might realize, oh, I haven't done that for a while. I've missed that. But if when you have your archetypes in front of you, you know exactly, oh, I'm feeling lackluster. Oh, what am I missing? Oh, I need to engage my star, or I need to engage my artist archetype. So knowing it makes just shortcuts the whole process, because without it, you may go for a year, many years without really looking what fulfills you, and suddenly you stumble on it. And you might get there through intuition, through insight. But I would say the difference is when you know what archetypes are, it's already in front of you. You know exactly what to do. You don't need to go through a period of trying to like basically suffering or feeling dead or feeling not fully alive. You don't need to go through that process, because when you have your archetypes, you know, oh, this is who I am. This is what's there.
Life makes sense
This
again.
has been missing. Let me re-engage with that. Yeah, exactly. It makes sense, and it also is a shortcut. It helps you quickly diagnose what's going on in your life and bring in what's necessary. This is
So
basically self-awareness. You have greater self-awareness.
okay, so you said that we've got roughly 12, well, we've got 12. Four are
Yeah.
universal to everybody because they're part of survival, and then there's eight that make up your character. So I have two questions here. God, I've got so many questions, Daniel. My brain's going. Let's talk about the four so that everybody can understand and also self-reflect on what you've got to say. And then let's talk about the importance of the other eight and how, because what you say, you help people understand purpose and their superpower. So I'm guessing that the eight are the ones that help with the superpowers. But let's talk about survival first.
So, okay, so there's four archetypes of survival, which once I say you'll be very familiar. So we all have the victim, which is
Yes.
about how we become
Why
victim in
me?
life. Exactly. And it helps you deal with those situations of victimhood. So, for example, in COVID, because we were all victim of COVID, there's nothing we could have done to not be victims of COVID, but it's how you deal with that. Like, do you fall into victimhood like poor me, or are you able to deal with whatever there's to deal with and rise out of victimhood and just deal with it appropriately? So it's all about setting boundaries. It's about alerting you to where you're being victimized or victimizing others. So that's about victim. So that's that one. We have the prostitute archetype, which is not about prostitution. It's how one makes one's way financially in the world.
Okay.
Um, so, for example, a prostitute could be a politician who sells out for to keep their job, for example, or people
So in
who
other words,
work
they
in
go against their values.
exactly, yeah, against your
Okay.
values of integrity, or someone who hates their job but they have a big paycheck, so they'll stick it out even though they're dying inside. So that's what the prostitute
So,
governs.
so the prostitute is about financial. So how does a prostitute show up to somebody who's actually very abundant and loves what they do?
So that so someone who they have it's a very strong prostitute, which means that they know that they can make their way in the world. They never have to command the fees, the type
Stop,
of work
stop,
they love
stop.
to
You,
do.
you, you cut out again. So talk about the
Okay.
prostitute again with they know how to.
Okay. So someone with a very strong prostitute is very confident and trusts that they can make their way in the world doing what they love without compromising. So it when someone with a very strong prostitute, you can basically drop them into the middle of the jungle and they'll lead, they'll do whatever it needs to do to make money
They'll
and
set up a shop and they'll start selling lemonade.
exactly. And they'll feel good in the
So,
process
and what
as
about
well.
the person who is financially struggling? Because I know that some of the people that I know that listen to this podcast are always going, oh, it just no matter what I do, the money's not coming. What's happening to that prostitute?
So that is so where you engage with the prostitute here is where you're underselling yourself, where you're
Okay.
not valuing yourself.
Okay.
You are maybe discounting your value or not looking for the jobs that you believe that you can do. It's about self-worth, essentially. So the prostitute governs your self-worth.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So then also we have the saboteur archetype, which is how we sabotage ourselves or others. So this is can be anything from procrastination, addiction, just not
Distraction.
distraction. Like when opportunities come up, you find some way to sabotage them or just see them and like, oh, I don't think that's important. So it's basically whenever how you deal with opportunities, the choices you make when it comes to opportunities. Do you embrace them or do you consciously or subconsciously sabotage opportunities that come your way? That's a saboteur. It's a very important archetype. And actually
Hmm.
and when it's in the light, it's very powerful because it has the saboteur actually holds a lot of power. And often I find a lot of people's power is hidden in their saboteur. So because it also is the power of destruction. So if you can destroy something, that is a very powerful. It requires power to destroy. So when you can use that energy for destruction or for creation. So
Yeah.
someone who has a very strong saboteur knows how to use that raw power to create what they want in life and to make good choices. So that's that one. And then ping
Okay.
adult
Stop. Stop.
programming.
Stop.
So
You cut out again. So start
okay.
and then.
Okay, so where was I before? Sorry.
You were going to go and then as you went and then it cut.
Okay,
So
I'll
to
just
the
start.
last one.
Okay, so the child is. Let me start
No.
with the
So,
child. So
so
the
just so, yeah. So say and then there's.
oh, and then there is the archetype of the child. So the child is about innocence, is about play, it's that joy of life, that innocence that we all come to from childhood. So and as you can see, when we get into adulthood, obviously there's great things about being an adult, but there's also sometimes the life gets struck out of us. So the child is about looking. The good thing about a child is it questions where we think things are not possible. The child's view is, well, why not? Why is that not possible? So if you look at Greta Thunberg, who I very much admire, especially when she was a child, like when we talk about climate change, she's very challenging. Well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Because the adult mind will create complication. The child is like, well, why not? Let's see, what can we create? So that's the beauty of the child is stepping out of is stepping the child helps you get into possibility, into looking at things through fresh eyes.
Okay, so we've got our 4 archetypes that are survival based. Now, tell
Yeah.
me about how we discover they would have to have a session with you. So I'm not going to go about how do they discover what their 8 archetypes are, but tell me the importance about getting to know what your archetypes are and what do you do about them.
So the importance is it basically gives you one, it helps you understand your purpose because it basically gives you the playing field. So it's like these are the archetypes you have. So if we imagine we come to Earth and the Earth is either a school or a playground, however you look at it, the archetypes will give you the range of what's possible. So, for example, if you have the lover archetype, which I have, it's like, well, your life is going to be all about passion and love,
Yeah.
and
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 heartbreak?
exactly, and heartbreak. Yes. So that's what you can experience in life. Or if you have the hero, it's your life is going to be about doing heroic things, like being inspired, inspiring others. So it gives you a sense of the themes of life that you're going to experience, and those themes give you a sense of purpose. So that can be very specific, or can just be th themes that one will encounter in life. So it gives you direction, and then and each archetype is almost a world in of itself. So you can spend your whole lifetime in one archetype. So understanding and doing that helps you master that archetype. So, for example,
So it
if
wouldn't
the
be a bad thing out of the eight if you focused on one.
no, it would not.
Okay.
So, for example, a client of mine, she has the queen archetype, and before she knew what the archetypes were, there was a sense that like people love to work with her. Like people in her company, people wanted to work for her for free, which is which demonstrates leadership and is one of the qualities of the king or queen archetype. People gravitate towards you and look to you for leadership. But when she actually understood that, she understood the strengths and the weaknesses of the queen. So, for example, for the ruler archetype, the power of your word is very important. So there will be sometimes when you say, "I'm going to do X, Y, and Z," and then forget about it. But people would remember that she said this, and they'll get upset when she wouldn't follow her word, because the power of the king or queen archetype, their word has such meaning, it has such carry.
Okay.
So when you understand the nuances of each archetype, it helps you step into greater power. Or someone with the prince or princess archetype, they just naturally attract people. And it's funny, I've seen this phenomenon with 4 or 5 different people, and they all happen to be princes. But first of all, my friend told me, "Oh yeah, whenever I go to a coffee shop or restaurant, it just tends to fill up." And then I started to speak to other people at the Prince archetype, and they would say, "Oh yeah, my partner has noticed that every time we go to a restaurant, it starts to fill up." And this is the phenomena that the Prince archetype has. There's something in the energetic field where people just start gravitating towards them unconsciously. Like if you're in a restaurant, no one can see you, but they just sense that, "Oh, I'm going into this restaurant. I don't know why. I feel like I need to go in this." So the prince's aura has this sense of charm. People need to be around the prince because they're uplifted in some way.
Oh, wow. So if I was a restaurant owner, would it be
Oh,
useful for
cut out.
me if I was working with archetypes to employ somebody in the PR that has the prince or princess archetype?
Yes and no. So it depends. So because the prince is about themselves a
Okay.
lot. So in a large organization it works. The princes make great salespeople. They're able to bring a following. So it's good if they're representing the king or queen. But if you so it depends on who you are, because sometimes they can overshadow your business as well because they become more popular. So it depends on the size of your organization and the relationships. Yeah, so I remember I had a business partner who was the prince. I said, okay, you can go and do the sales. I'll be the engineer wizard in the background do the work. And I just let him do that part of it. Like you do business development. And so I didn't like because I could have easily got into, oh, they're getting all the clients, I'm feeling left out. But I said, no, that's their strength. Let them do that. So
That sounds really good.
yes.
And tell me, so from a if life is not working, so obviously the people I work with mainly, it's about half and half. Some of them are
Yeah.
like everything's great, but I just want it to be greater,
Yeah.
or things are not so great and I don't know why and I want to fix it. How does your work help direct those kind of people? I mean, if somebody's let's just talk about somebody who's not living the life that they would choose. Is not living life on their terms. What do you
Yeah.
think is going on there from an archetype's perspective?
So there can be 2 types. So the one is the survival archetypes. So those archetypes are disempowered. So generally it's going to be the prostitute and the saboteur, which is generally seems to be the source of a lot of things. And then it's they're missing their archetypes. They don't know what makes them feel alive. They don't they don't know how. So each archetype governs a particular aspect of life. So and is it related to the house of astrology? You don't need to know astrology, but for example, one archetype is how people look at you, how people respond to you. So, for example, I had this. friend who has the archetype with the princess, and she just said, "Oh, one day a girl just came up and gave me a flower for no reason." So people unconsciously respond to you in a certain way. So if you know that, then it helps you navigate your interactions with other people. So that's for starters. There'll be an archetype that governs how you feel fulfilled in life, because when you feel fulfilled in your internal life, then it's easier to go out there and it's easier to attract and make things happen. So for example, for you, it was the artist, the fashion designer, that archetype there, that is something that gives you fulfillment. And when we have that energetic fulfillment, it's easier for us to go out in the world and make our way in the world. So knowing that archetype is very key, because it will always it will always help us get back to our foundations. And then there's the archetype of which the what there's archetypes which govern money. How do you best make money in the world? So maybe you don't know what that archetype is, so you're trying to do something which doesn't fit, is not an archetypal fit for you.
Mm.
Um, and then there's the archetypes of how we communicate. So there's different archetypes which fulfill different roles, or even the archetype of what is the most fun thing for us to do? How do we express our creative energy in the world? So when you find those archetypes, it unlocks what actually makes you successful. So it's the blueprint of your success. So I would say
Oh.
then when you're when you are not being successful, it's because you don't know the blueprint of your success,
And
essentially.
then knowing that, and would the blueprint also help someone in knowing what to put more attention and focus and energy on, and how to? So, for instance, if your prostitute and your saboteur, you said if they are sort of working against you, it can sort of collude and make a mess of your life. So, how would you fix that if
The
I'm,
first thing
I'm
is to
hearing what you're saying. I'm trying to understand. Okay, so if I knew that my prostitute and my saboteur were having a field day, like a party at
yeah,
my expense, how do I fix
yeah.
that?
So you get to the source of it. So you first of all, it's awareness. So knowing how that happens. So for example, one of my clients, very good at what they do, very well recognized. But then whenever he gets new clients, he underprices. And then we
Okay.
looked at what was going on. The prostitute was underpricing, but then feeling angry about it. So it's the clue. It's like, oh, your prostitute's
Resentful.
underpricing, then you feel angry. Yeah, feeling resentful for it. So then it's doing the work of, I noticed this pattern. Now I need to overcome this pattern and change it. And you can also look at deeper things. So one of the things we saw, I think he had the hero archetype. So versus working for money, he was working for validation. So working a lot for his clients, but really not really work under, because what was secretly going on is he was just looking more for validation versus actually gaining money. So these
Mm.
dynamics, so the archetypes show up these dynamics. So because when you know the archetypes, you can see what the shadow is. So when you know what the shadow is, you can see, this is my shadow pattern. I can change it.
So you've just mentioned this, and I remember now in our last conversation we talked about the shadow. Talk to us a little bit more about what does it mean when we're working with shadows or looking at the shadow of the archetype.
Yeah. So the archetypes have a light side, which is the good side, and then the shadow side, which is what's hidden and what goes against you. So you need to understand the shadow, because it will reveal the patterns where you are going against yourself. So, example, it's funny. I have two clients now who have the hero archetype, and one of the common things that they do is they make their life more difficult because they want that challenge. So, and then unaware of it.
Oh my goodness.
So, whereas, whereas they could be making more money, then, I'm sorry, you,
No. It's when you say it so simply, when you like put up the mirror and you say it so simply, it seems so funny. But I'm sure that until you showed them that, they would just probably feel a lot of frustration, I would imagine.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. They're like, why am I not making the money I want to make? Then we look at it. It's like, because you've got the hero, and the shadow hero is looking for glory and challenge, and not unnecessary challenge. And I used to do that myself in one of my second job, where I would get very complacent and do like poor quality work. And then when my bosses got upset and kind of gave me a warning, I would then create an amazing heroic piece of work, because I love the challenge of like coming back. And I felt really good about it, and they felt good. But what they wanted was consistency, not up and down. But for me, in my own world, I just love the challenge of like pulling it out of the box, like really.
The
making a great
suffering
effort.
and the all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then at some point I realized, oh, that's the shadow of the hero. It's like, why am I doing that? Why don't I just make like, but then doing consistently good work would be boring. So you have to understand that archetype or dynamic and say, okay, I can see that that's not healthy. Let's just
So would
nip
you
that in
go
the
and do
bud.
something like join up and do rock climbing because that's a bit of a heroic thing to do just to satisfy that part so that it doesn't interfere with your work or it doesn't
Yeah, that's definitely a solution. So it would be finding an outlet for that hero archetype. It's like
so that it
find a
doesn't
better
outlet in your
challenge.
work.
Exactly. It's like find a better challenge.
You know what it sounds like, all Daniel? It sounds like you're managing a whole lot of kids, and trying to go, right, you go and play with this, and now you eat this, and you go and sleep a little bit. Is that what it
Yeah.
is like?
Well, on the shadow aspect, yes, definitely. But then we have the don't forget we have the positive sides as well.
Yeah.
So the positive strengths. But yeah, definitely the shadow. It's like it is. Yeah, actually, I think it's right. It's like managing a bunch of kids. It's like, oh, you're doing that. Okay, go do that somewhere else and be more productive.
Yeah, or here, go and color in this rather than break down somebody else's toys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, for example, I've got the warrior archetype, and that can be like overworking or being ultra competitive in life. And sometimes I find myself being ultra competitive in games, and like, oh, let's take it up a sport so I can just channel that energy somewhere else.
So I suppose with you knowing so much about yourself, when things are not working out, you're very quick to be able to go, oh, my hero needs a little bit of attention, or my warrior needs a little bit of downsizing, or some. That's what it helps you do. It helps you
Yeah,
manage.
yeah, absolutely.
So when
It
you do
does.
your intuitive coaching, is it that you help people understand themselves to the level where they can then manage their lives better and bring it more into alignment rather than being scattered all over the place? Is that what
Yeah,
ultimately what this work does?
yeah, exactly. And then, so for example, if it's a specific case, for example, business, there'll be certain archetypes that they need to develop in business or in relationships. I don't really cover relationships often, but sometimes it comes up. But like relationships, it's like, oh, well, no wonder you're incompatible because you have the engineer and the other person has the lover, and the engineer and lover are, are like they're in conflict because the engineer is giving cold solutions and the lover just wants to be heard and appreciated. So
So
yeah,
in that kind of case, and that's interesting because right now in my membership we're talking about relationships. So would that mean that you can't actually do it, or would it mean that now that we know, we can bend a little bit and be more flexible towards each other, knowing that there's a lover and an engineer at play? Because surely there's
yeah,
other archetypes that would be compatible.
yeah, exactly. So then you can shift into a different one. You can put put that one aside and bring up another one. Or we can, and on some level, we can all relate to all of the archetypes, actually. We have a little bit of all of them, although we have strong ones. So you could even get in touch with your own lover, your own engineer, so you can have some compassion or some understanding
So,
for the other
Daniel,
person.
when you start working with somebody, what is the process? So, for anybody listening to you and going, I want to do something with Daniel, I want, there's a lot of things I'm sure people will resonate with listening to this program and would want to explore more. So, how does it work?
So first
What happens next? Let's put it this
so we
way.
base, so what we do is we basically find your archetypal blueprint, which is your 12 archetypes. So we go through your life because if you interview someone, I do an interview and that's just covering generally our past generally shows up kind of the archetypes we have. So we just have a conversation, and then out of that conversation, some some clear archetypes start to emerge. Like, oh, I can see you've got the lover there. So, for example, if I was talking to you, Vicky, it's like, oh, you love to do fashion design. Oh, I'm seeing an artist or something very creative coming out. So, it's definitely a creative archetype coming up. Okay, we can see that's a strong one. So, everything has your clues. So, has a clue. So, your occupation will have a clue. There'll be clues. So, people who help others either have the healer, they have the guide, they have the sage, they have the hero, the caregiver. So there's certain archetypal themes. So essentially, we have a conversation, we dig deep, and we find the archetypes. You can go through the deck of cards and look at the archetypes and see which ones resonate with you. So it's conversation. It's quite an intuitive and reflective process as well. And we then emerge with your 12 archetypes, and then we look at where in which areas of life do they come out. So once we have that, once you have your profile, then that is kind of the first step. So it basically gives you a lot of information and helps you understand who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move into the activation phase. We start to look at what archetypes you want to step into, do you want to activate, which ones do you want to work with, what are the things that will help you in whatever goal you have. So in business, which archetypes you want to bring in that will transform your business, for example, or make you feel more passionate and alive in your business, or make life more easier in business. So that's how we work. And then that would be like 3 to 6 month engagement from there.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it would work.
It sounds absolutely amazing, and I love the stories that you've shared. So we're going to have all of Daniel's information and links on the notes. So just go below and you will see how you can connect with Daniel and get to know more about him. Go and look at him on his website. So if you want to do some work, just go and follow the links. And otherwise, Daniel, like I said, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours.
Me too. I could talk for hours as well. I love it.
So is there an archetype for talking? Because I think we both got that archetype in.
There's a few, that would say.
I think I'm a retailer.
Yeah.
I've always prided myself of being really, really good in hypnotherapy, to use metaphors to help people create change. And that's
right.
doing stories.
Yes, definitely. Metaphor, like looking at metaphors is definitely storyteller.
I remember with my kids when they were young, I used to say to them, they're allowed to pick 3 things. So then I'd say, right, you go first. What's the first thing? And then my one daughter would go, a rainbow. And I said, okay, what's your one thing? They go, unicorn. And I said, all right, we've got a rainbow and a unicorn. What's next? A wolf, a slide. I'm like, okay, what's this next one? Waterfall, a princess. And then I'd go, once upon a time.
Oh, wow. Oh, I love it.
And then I would put, all of the things in, and I would create a story and a metaphor inside of that using all the elements.
Oh,
so
wow.
I've always been really, really good at that. So I think I am a storyteller. And funnily enough, my grandfather named me Pit Pit. So my grandparents looked after me when I was about 2.5 for about 6 to 9 months, roughly.
Yeah.
And my grandfather called me Pit Pit because I was pit 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 pit. Who was to know then that my speaking would be one of the things that I do as work?
Oh, well, yes, absolutely.
It was all there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But even the podcast is about stories, people's stories. So
yes, it is.
The theme is there.
and I love every single one that I do. And I think the people that listen to it, and some feedback we've had is that they love listening to my stories, the stories that I have with people, because it's fascinating, and it's, anything that will help somebody rise up and step into their lives and claim back their power. That's why I loved your superpower word. I'm not scared of it, and live life on your terms. This is what I'm all about. So Daniel, thank you so much for today. And for everybody else, if you want to join my membership, the link is also at the bottom. I've got a fantastic membership. We have themed months, and then we talk right through the months about all of this. And if there's anything else that you would like to do, work with me, there's also the links at the bottom. And once again, thank you for listening. And until we meet again, here's to your success.